Hello everyone, I'm Arik Johnson, CEO of Aurora WDC. Today we're going to tackle head-on some of the common misperceptions that occur out in modern-day intelligence functions. At times, guys, we hear CI can't be done ethically. Arik, talk about the vision you had for Aurora as far as that misconception in the industry relates to it.
Well, you know, when I started the company back in '95, a lot of what I saw in the marketplace regarding ethics had a lot to do with the notion that primarily primary research, human interviewing, and that sort of thing involved misrepresentation or the theft of trade secrets or ultimately compelling your people to take risks that they shouldn't have. And when the company got its start, I really made a conscious effort to put in place risk controls and business processes that prevented those types of activities from happening internally, including conflict of interest among our clients. And a part of that had to do with something that I refer to as the development of the asymmetric era of asymmetric interpretation. The old school of competitive intelligence was conducted in an era where asymmetries of information were really most important, where if I knew something that you didn't know, then I had a competitive advantage over you in making a decision. Mm-hmm. Today we live in a world where there's so much information available that any sort of an information asymmetry is very fleeting at best and often requires very risky behavior in order to acquire it. Today, the world that we live in has tremendous amounts of information that really makes it necessary for us to look at the same corpus of information, derive different insights and analysis from it through an asymmetry of interpretation among our people.
You know, that brings out the important point of making sure that your collection efforts are guided by the analysis methods that you know you need to have to answer those key intelligence topics or needs that the executives express. You're going to be a lot less tempted to try to gather that needle in the haystack or worse still, again, that one piece of data that actually is sitting somewhere that you really shouldn't be going to get it if you've already thought through the fact that, again, certain kinds of data, creatively interpreted, creatively analyzed, can be critical to, again, generating those insights that we're always looking for.
We find some of our clients actually have specific prohibitions wherein they say that, for example, we can't speak to the current employees of their competitors. However, it's okay for us to speak to former employees of those particular companies. So over the course of our 16-year history, we have been very, very successful at even working with the increasingly stringent limitations that sometimes are placed upon us. And we've found that in every situation we've been able to extract the needed information and then conduct our analyses as we've needed to. So, you know, I'm proud of the fact that we have a company that does truly excel and truly holds itself to a higher standard than what even the SCIP standard is for ethics in our industry. So, in fact, we just recently announced a particular endowment for ethics and excellence in intelligence for a certain individual who's been astounded in our industry and known for his ethics. So we definitely have been a champion for strong ethics in our industry.
Another misconception, gentlemen, that we hear is that we already spend a lot of money on market research. Why do I need to do competitive intelligence? Daman, what would you say to that?
Well, you know, I mean, there are times where that may be true. The vast majority of the time, though, is that often that money that they're spending on that syndicated research or the money that they're spending on on the various research search tools, engines that are out there, if you're thinking about flying over the terrain and you're trying to get a real understanding of what's going on the ground, oftentimes that syndicated research gets you at 10,000 feet above the ground, maybe 5,000 feet. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's adequate for certain types of business planning and execution. But then we find there's many of our clients that are saying, but we need more information. We need to actually find out what the boots on the ground level of information is available to us. We need to know what's going on because we're making either a very strategic or a very tactical series of decisions. And that is something that requires to go deeper than what typically is available to them through standard means. Also, there are elements out there where they may be looking for something very, very narrow, and sometimes the syndication or the research that they're buying through the various outlets can either be dated, or in some cases, certain geographies of the world, what you find through either the internet or what you can actually buy even isn't very valid information to begin with. It would be erroneous, almost reckless to proceed with that type of information. So again, primary based information can be extremely useful at certain times.
You know something too, market research itself is based on defining markets. Markets morph, markets change, markets come and go, markets grow, markets shrink. There's a kinetic element to it. There's an evolutionary element, dynamic element that most market research does not capture. Most market research is a snapshot. You know, and real simply, again, if that snapshot is done accurately in the first place, which you hope it is, and you have enough of those over time, then you can begin to develop the trends and patterns. But in reality, company strategy is based on trying to shift markets and shift the field of the market, the context of the market, to the advantage of that company. That's what we're doing. That's about innovation. That's about development. That's often about things that customers don't even know that they want. We do the market research. It's usually looking at the rearview mirror, when in reality, when we're trying to do intelligence, we're trying to look out of the windshield. We're trying to look out at what's ahead of us. Most market research does not capture that adequately.
On top of that, I think you mentioned syndicated research and industry analysis that comes from the same sources. When everyone's subscribed to the same insights, then you can't derive a competitive advantage from it. Everyone sees the market the same way. And I think this is connected with the idea that market research is really driving product development and product development over time. That doesn't necessarily address the environmental conditions that confront the enterprise, and ultimately can be very much more important in terms of the destiny of the organization in the long run. It tends to make us believe that we've got a more accurate picture of today. And that's really, as you said, Daman, the ultimate hazard and the real danger is if we think we know more than we really do.
Exactly.
Not only that, but market research, especially in the syndicated world, it's table stakes. Your competitor can go and buy the exact same syndicated report that you can. And so being able to navigate your way around and into the real deep primary competitive intelligence is where true competitive advantage comes into play.
It's a major difference as well between the analytical techniques that you'd apply to market research versus the ones that you would use in a competitive intelligence context. The competitive intelligence context techniques are designed to help you identify those places you can achieve advantage in changing marketplaces, dynamic marketplaces, new marketplaces, some of which you're going to create. The market research techniques don't do that.
One of the common complaints that we hear from people close to our firm is that their executives rely too much on Google. How can we help them overcome that misconception and coach their executives around a different pathway?
Well, I think for a lot of business decision makers, Google represents a real innovation in how they look at the world. They're able to go out and search for general topics and see a pretty comprehensive looking list of millions of results, some of which presumably must be relevant to the topic that they're interested in. I think the fallacy that comes in there is that they believe they've got an in-depth representation of what the issues are around the topic that they've just searched for. For example, if you search Google News expecting to see a full breakdown of all the intricacies of an event from the business world, it's very tempting to believe that you've gotten a full picture on what's happening there. Really, you've only gotten a surface treatment of what the issues might be, and you haven't done any analysis yet to even understand how those issues might impact your organization.
You know, Google has its own algorithms that it uses that are based on their particular needs and desires and have been done over time. That may or may not be the same algorithms that you need to apply for your own companies. And so those executives that are using that may be missing some important data. They may be getting a heavily biased set of sources that are easily acquired by Google, but may not necessarily be the ones that they need to have at the table as they're thinking through those issues that they're facing. And again, at the end of the day, you still have to sift through, as Arik was mentioning, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of sources, some of which may be misinformation that's been regenerated or reproduced many, many times over. And all that's going to do is confuse you even faster.
The intelligence process is more comprehensive, it's more complex, and frankly, it's more thorough than that. So, you know, that's I think where we separate ourselves in understanding that, you know, if you want to use a Google methodology, you will get the results of whatever's in Google. But if you want to use a real intelligence process, then you will get the fruits of what an investment in a real intelligence process is about.
I heard someone say once, if you use what you've always used, you'll get what you've always gotten, right? So I think what you said, Arik, about the surface level treatment and in conjunction with Damon's and Craig's thoughts, you know, the ability to get well beyond Google is something that, you know, corporate America and global companies need to depend upon, and helping stakeholders who are guiding intelligence functions to coach their internal stakeholders to do that is something that's going to be a problem they'll have to overcome for a while.
You know, there's a lesson in this, though, for CI practitioners, and I think it's one that a company like Aurora gets very well. If you can make intelligence convenient and easy to use, that's the reason the executives go to it. If we can make our intelligence just as easy as it is just to click into Google and out comes, you know, again, although we've said it doesn't generate intelligence, it generates a lot of sources, but if we can put our intelligence and enable it to do the same kind of benefit that Google does, then we're useful and helpful to our executives.
I think the business of design and designing intelligence products or designing the business itself is about taking things away and making things simpler, right? Google made the search experience simple. It took what Alta Vista and Excite and all these other search engines had done to try and make search more complicated, and they made it extremely simple, and it gave you a sense of confidence, surprise, delight in the results that you'd get from doing a very simple search and making you believe that you've gotten a very complete set of results. I think that what intelligence can learn from Google is that when we simplify our output, when we simplify our products, we get people's attention, and ultimately making those products consumable and actionable are really what Google's lessons are for the intelligence world.